Hello, friends, and welcome to Unity World Day of Prayer. I'm Reverend Jim Blake, the CEO at Unity World Headquarters, and we are so grateful you are joining your hearts and minds with us and the many thousands of people who will be praying around the globe for the next 24 hours. Unity was founded on prayer. Charles and Myrtle Fillmore both healed their physical bodies with affirmative prayer and meditation, and they established Unity in 1889 to share what they were learning. They started the Unity Prayer Ministry, then called the Society of Silent Help, and now called Silent Unity. The prayers that began 130 years ago continue today for all who ask. Every year for World Day of Prayer, we receive tens of thousands of prayer requests from you. Starting with the prayer vigil tonight, those names and desires will be held in the prayer vigil for the next 24 hours. Then they'll be kept in the Silent Unity Prayer Vigil Chapel for another 30 days. This is a powerful time to be praying. But of course, Silent Unity is available to you 24/7 for any prayer request, anytime during the year. You can call to talk with a prayer associate in person, and they will pray with you directly. You can choose to listen to a recorded prayer when you call. Or you can go online and submit a prayer request that will be answered by email or a letter. Let me give you an overview of what to expect on this 29th Annual World Day of Prayer. For the next hour, you will hear inspiring speakers and musicians who will nourish your soul. I'm looking forward to hearing each one of them share their experience of this year's theme, Holding the High Watch. They'll talk about what that means and how we can hold the high watch for ourselves and those we love. We will be affirming together, I pray with an elevated mind and open heart. The celebration continues through tomorrow, all in this same Zoom room, so you can come back with the same link you used for tonight. Be sure to adjust for your time zone when you look at the schedule. We are in the Central Time Zone here at Unity Village, Missouri. Tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. Central, we'll come together to set our prayerful intention for the day with the Daily Word read by Reverend Teresa Burton, the editor of Daily Word. She'll be followed by Reverend Linda Martella-Whitsitt, who heads the Unity Prayer Ministry, talking about prayer as an interfaith practice. She'll be joined by Reverend Paul John Roach, the author of the new book, Unity and World Religions. The daily Unity prayer service is always at 11 a.m. Central, and that will be followed by an overview of affirmative prayer called Praying the Unity Way. So plan to stay here in the Zoom room for about 45 minutes to hear about the meaning of affirmative prayer and how to pray from a consciousness of abundance. Then finally, the closing ceremony at 7 p.m. Central will include sound healing, and you will end the day with a deeper understanding of what it means to pray with an elevated mind and open heart. As always, thank you so much for joining us. I know you'll be spiritually uplifted tonight as we begin this sacred time together. And we hope to see you again tomorrow, all in this Zoom room, using the link you already have. Now let's begin the 2022 World Day of Prayer.
Hello everyone, my name is Tracy Riley, and I'm a manager with the Silent Unity Prayer Ministry. We're truly delighted that you are with us this evening as we open World Day of Prayer. We begin with our guiding prayer, and so we invite you to become still and turn within as together with our hearts, minds, and spirits linked as one, we declare this intention. With an inward and upward gaze, I rise from human concerns so that I might revel in the indwelling Spirit. I take my seat, my place, in the seat of prayer, in the radiance of divine light. I hold the high watch for all people, knowing the truth of oneness and wholeness. I am one with divine love that lifts the sorrowful and suffering. I am one with divine life by which they heal. I am one with divine wisdom that beams like a lighthouse, shining light on their path ahead. My eyes of faith have a view of the horizon. I wait watchfully. I view the fulfillment of dreams and intentions for me and for all those with whom I pray, without obstruction and in a state of expectancy. My vision is far-reaching as I hold the high watch. I say amen and let it be. And so it is.
I close my eyes, I open my heart, I take a deep breath, let the healing start. I lift my hands, I plant my feet, I let love in. I feel the beat that's calling, calling, calling us to rise, rise, Spirit, rise up, rise in me. I ready my soul, I clear my mind, I'm here and now, in present time. I feel the power of 1,000 suns, lighted up the dark. Oh, we rise as one. Oh, rise, rise, Spirit, rise up, rise in me. Oh, rise, rise, Spirit, rise up, rise in me, rise in me. I sing to you, I sing to you, you sing to me, you sing to me. Change up this noise, make sweet harmony. Come on and rise, oh, rise, Spirit, rise up, rise in me. Oh, rise, rise, Spirit, rise up, rise in me, rise in me. Heart to heart, hand in hand, no turning back, onward to promised land. Do you feel the power of 1,000 suns, lighted up the dark? Oh, we rise as one. Love's calling, calling out your name. Love's calling. It's why we came. Love's calling, calling out your name. Love's calling. It's why we came. Come on and rise, oh, rise,
Hello, friends. Uniting in consciousness for this World Day of Prayer, we are fulfilling the promise of Scripture, particularly in the Gospel of Matthew, that affirms, "Where 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, I am there among them." Well, we know that I am is the divine idea of humanity, the truth of our divine identity. Co-founder of Unity, Charles Fillmore, related I am to Christ consciousness, or as he called it, the God-man. Put more simply, I am refers to the divine human that each of us is. When we claim I am during prayer, we are recognizing God is the source of our true identity that is fully human and fully divine. Our gathering for World Day of Prayer is a recognition of our collective knowledge of God as the one and only power, and the knowledge that we are divine and therefore able to hold the high watch in prayer, as Jesus did, as all spiritual masters have, and as we are capable of by means of our divine identity. Our theme this year is holding the high watch, as each of us carves out precious periods of time throughout the next 24 hours for prayer. We will share in the affirmation, I pray with an elevated mind and open heart. This statement affirms our capacity of spaciousness, that we are capable of a broader vision than we have held, that we are available for inspiration and for revelation, for our own personal prayer intentions, as well as for the world and all people. And that we deliberately hold our hearts open to a greater love, life, order, and peace than we have known. We do this. We pray with an elevated mind and an open heart, in service to the kind of world we want, and for realization of the highest truth we know about divine wholeness and well-being for all people. You, your friends, and your spiritual community are warmly invited to any and all of the scheduled events, in addition to your personal prayer times. I want to share with you a key message appearing in a 1926 publication that was mailed to first-time prayer requesters. The booklet was titled, Instructions for Those Receiving the Ministry of the Silent Unity Society. I'm quoting, concentration, affirmation, meditation, holding the thought, going into the silence, and speaking the word are terms meaning exactly the same as prayer. And I'll say, add to these terms this year's World Day of Prayer theme, holding the high watch. The instruction continues, go where you will be alone, sit in a comfortable position, and relax your entire body. For the time being, dismiss all other thoughts and considerations from your mind and give your entire attention to the work in hand. You can learn to do this readily with a little practice. Close your eyes and begin your prayer by repeating silently or audibly the words of the truth statement or affirmation which is given to you. And friends, this year's World Day of Prayer affirmation is, I pray with an elevated mind and open heart. Repeat this affirmation a number of times, speaking the words slowly. Think about the words until you understand their full meaning. Well, instructions from 1926 continue to be relevant in 2022. In fact, we are united with early leaders whose consciousness continues to inspire us as we unfold the world in prayer intently throughout the next 24 hours.
This is Reverend Christina Garza, and we're watching World Day of Prayer from Unity of Nashville in Tennessee.
Hi, I'm Stacey Macus Ross, watching World Day of Prayer online from Thousand Oaks, California.
Hi, I'm Reverend Roxanne Graves.
Hi, I'm Bob Salazzo.
And I'm Wanda Wright.
I am Reverend Karen Saunders from Christ Love Unity Church.
Helen Balafama Wilcox Sewaraye.
I'm the Reverend Glenda Walden. I'm Reverend Kathy Beasley, Operations Manager for the Unity Prayer Ministry, and I'm praying with you from Orlando, Florida.
From my island, Ayama, Peterside, Bonny Rivers States, Nigeria.
From Fort Wayne, Indiana.
Unity on the Space Coast in Titusville, Florida.
And you're watching the
And we're watching the World Day of Prayer online from Omaha, Nebraska.
Hi, this is Dana Grissom, and we are watching World Day of Prayer online from Kansas City, Missouri.
When your feet feel a shift in the road, and uphill is the only way to go, and when resistance is all you can find, surrender to the incline. You know what I'm talking about? When the levels all seem cocked and the easy way is blocked and that roller coaster is clicking up the climb, surrender to the incline. Up and away may not feel familiar about the steps that you're taking. They don't lead to where you are. No, all the hard work that you're doing is gonna take you closer, nearer, higher to the stars, closer to who you are. That's right. Because check it out. Your spirit, it will not stand still. So hear it and let go of that. Will fall into the hands of time. Surrender, surrender, surrender to the incline. Up and away may not feel familiar about the steps that you're taking. They don't lead to where you are. All the hard work that you're doing, it's gonna take you closer, nearer, higher to the stars, closer to who you are. So when your feet feel a shift in the road, and uphill is the only way to go, when resistance is all you can find, surrender to the incline. Yeah.
Thank you, Amy Steinberg, for your musical message that is leading into the conversation that I'm about to have right now with my colleagues, all of them New Thought Messengers. We want to talk about this year's World Day of Prayer theme, Holding the High Watch. It's a familiar phrase in New Thought, but on the chance that you're new to these teachings or you're curious to deepen your own understanding, I'm going to ask my friends to begin by stating briefly What does holding the high watch mean to you? Let's start with you, Kathy.
Holding the high watch for me means that I am ever vigilant in the practice of prayer and the activity of awareness of the divine in my life. And so being able to hold that high watch means that I'm willing to tie myself a knot in the end of that rope and hang in there for the good of myself, my community, my family, and the world.
That's very clear. I love the image of tying a knot and hanging on. Okay, Evan.
Well, for me, thank you, Linda. For me, holding the high watch it's really holding my own consciousness to a higher level. Making sure that I am in touch with that divine, God presence, whatever you call it, that lives within inside of me. And once I am in touch with that and I'm living from that place and lifting my consciousness, I'm able to also lift the consciousness of those around me, which to me is holding that high watch.
Beautiful, beautiful. Okay, how about you, Tanisha?
Thank you. Well, for me, holding the high watch means that I am intentional about observing every person, every relationship, every situation, everything in the manifest world with reverence. And what that means to me is with the understanding that God is moving and that if I allow it to happen, God will reveal to me how I am to be in that moment.
So many beautiful, interesting ways of you describing this idea of holding the high watch. How about you, Chris?
Thank you, Linda. I love all the answers that we've received so far. For me, keeping the high watch is keeping the most important appointment of my life. And that is the appointment with my own internal awareness of the presence of God in myself, in all others, in every circumstance and situation of life. And I say this is the most important appointment because I think that our relationship with the divine is the single most important relationship we have. And when we cultivate that by maintaining the high watch, we're really allowing ourselves to express as God created us. And for me, there's nothing more valuable in life than that experience born of that relationship.
Wow, so many beautiful thoughts you all have about this, and it creates a lot of imagery for me. I mean, when I think about the high watch myself, I think about getting up on top of the mountain. We see references to this in all the scriptures, not just the Christian and the Jewish scriptures, but all faith traditions have some kind of idea of a higher consciousness, right? Of reaching a pinnacle of consciousness. And so I always imagine, in fact, I often will start my own prayer times with this of getting up to the mountaintop, of rising, elevating my mind to the highest heights that I can achieve, knowing that the view is vastly different up here than it is on the ground, right? When I'm in the valley, there's all the obstructions of the view around me, of all the other things, even just the distractions of life. But when I come up to the mountaintop, up to the heights, there is a clear view all the way to the horizon. And so I have a view on the things going on in my life that is vast, that is spacious. And I have now a way of being able to make sense of my life without the interruptions and the interferences of all that happens in the human only sort of consciousness. So for me, it's a very visual sort of capacity that I think about when I hear that idea of holding the high watch. And of course, it has elements of so many of the things that you've each spoken of, which is about, being in touch with our divinity, with our divine nature, with that of us which is the ineffable, that in us which is that is accessible only in the rarefied air of the heights, So I hope this really helps those who are listening and participating, and you feel for yourself, What does it mean to you personally to enter that state of mind that is the height, right? That is up on the mountaintop, or is holding the high watch, holding yourself, holding your mind steady on the truth of things rather than on the variability of things that happens in the limited or relative sense. So good. Well, here's the other thing that I often hear, and maybe you do too. When I think about holding the high watch, I think about elevating my mind. I often, even in my own mind, have a pushback on this, and I hear it from other people. And the pushback is, but isn't that just magical thinking? Isn't that just sort of like, what we call in Unity often toxic positivity, where I'm just looking to get out of my present circumstances and to sort of, you know what I mean? It's sort of pretend as if things are not happening that are happening. So how would you say that holding the high watch in the way that we're thinking about it in terms of a prayer process, how is that different from magical thinking or from toxic positivity? Evan, I think you had some things you wanted to say about that.
One of the things that I've really given a lot of thought to is, something that, it's not something that we've seen just as of late. We've probably seen this over the course of many years, but lately when something happens, I see people or I hear people respond with thoughts and prayers. And then that's just it. They just kind of leave it there at just thoughts and prayers. It's almost as if they're leaving it to, some external deity or something outside of ourselves to take care of. Just kind of taking the responsibility away from themselves or away from us. Let's just kind of throw it out there and think somebody or something else is going to take care of it. And then, we just go on with our lives. But, part of it, to me, when we pray, is that we're starting to open our own consciousness. We're starting to open our minds to not just raise our consciousness, but to also be receptive, to listen, to truly listen to those thoughts that are coming our way and those ideas that are perhaps coming from that higher place within ourselves, whether it's from, the God presence or, your higher, or whatever term you use for it. We're opening ourselves to be able to hear those thoughts that come to us, hear those ideas, and to act, to most importantly act. Because we can say thoughts and prayers, but unless we're willing to actually act, it's just words, just thoughts and prayers.
Too often, especially nowadays, there's a real pushback on the thought of dismissing or not attending to your own emotions in the midst of a circumstance. This is a prevalent theme I'm hearing when I'm teaching about or talking about healing themes, is that it used to be, at least my experience in early training in New Thought, was really about like don't think about those things, right? Turn your mind. Overcome that lower thought really fast and get to this high place. And in a sense, it's a sort of can be used as almost an escapism, to not deal with the emotional life or with the human condition, because I'm really encouraged by nowadays we're really hearing a lot more about honoring our human, right? Honoring our human experience and all the thoughts and feelings that go along with that, without getting hooked into them and making them the point of existence or the answer to the questions of our life. So in some way, how do we when we're going to the high place, when we're wanting to hold the high watch, how do we include a respect for our own circumstance or for our own experience of our circumstances and emotions? I don't know. This is something I've really been thinking about a lot.
Yeah, there's a thought that crossed my mind as in listening to the exchange between Yolanda and Evan, that it's the idea of taking that journey upward, which for me, I'm okay with a little bit of magical thinking. I live in Orlando, so it's the Magic Kingdom around here. But the thing that I like is if I choose to take the journey upward, it gives me a different perspective of the thing that may be the issue or the problem. And it allows me to change where I am in my thoughts. But as we know, in terms of geography, the higher you go, the thinner the air. And so if I'm willing to take that ride upward, it means that there is less in my way to be able to deal with whatever is before me. And so I'm all right with a little change in perspective. And I'm okay also with the opportunity to just kind of move on up in my thoughts and to be able to do that for myself in relation to the life that I'm living. So that was the thought I had in listening to your exchange.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, Tanisha.
What comes to mind for me is that there is a distinction to be made between refusing to see something or not seeing it and seeing it rightly, right? And holding the high watch is not refusing to acknowledge that something exists, but it is learning to see it from a higher perspective, learning to raise it and to engage and be moved by spirit into, as Evan said, right action in response.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, I think that leads right into my next sort of thought and question here. I'm remembering times when my own circumstances of my own human experience were so troubling, when I was feeling such a great deal of emotion about them, and oftentimes that's centered around my kids because, my maternal warrior mom, really shows up, and it's just so hard to turn that off, to temper that, to tamp it down enough that I can be clear, that I can really hold space for my kids. I'm like filled with my own emotions and feels. It can feel just so daunting, the thought of getting higher can seem like impossible to me at that time. So how can we get to the high watch? I think about people who say, well, look, I'm just one paycheck away from being houseless. Or, when the third teenager in my neighborhood just got shot, how, when I'm struggling, with a physical or a mental illness process that seems relentless, or that I've been given a terrible diagnosis, how do I get myself up to the high watch from there? This, I think, is very important for so many people, and I want to hear, as many of you like to weigh in on this as possible. But Tarnisha, I know you particularly wanted to start with something to say about that.
Yes, I thank you for that very complex question. And I think it is important for us to realize that there is individual consciousness, and then there's also collective consciousness. And sometimes when people are in crisis, that is the time for us to hold the high watch for one another. And to speak life and speak truth into one another's situations while walking and helping and showing up, in a very tangible way. And for those of us who are followers of Jesus, we can see that being demonstrated, that being modeled for us. It's not enough to try to teach the lesson when someone is hurting, when someone is hemorrhaging, when someone can't breathe, when someone is, hungry, right? We've got to help to fill the need, talk as we walk, and hold the high watch with one another and create the space for the lesson at some point, but maybe not in that precise moment.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, you're really speaking to me because I have prayer partners, and I know, most of my my colleagues in ministry have prayer partners, because there's times when we support one another in that process. And this is why Silent Unity, or the Unity Prayer Ministry, exists. And so that's always an option, to call the prayer line or to, use the electronic means of reaching Silent Unity. Because we can lend our realized consciousness to someone who's struggling to get into that consciousness themselves, and that's the whole point of prayer support in my experience. I've had that valuable, and I know who to call. You know how many, you know the friends you can call. I like to say this, and it's a little crude maybe. I like to say I reach for somebody when I'm really struggling, with being able to distinguish between my human experience and my divine nature. I know who to call, who's going to slap me up the head sideways, who's going to slap some truth into me in a good way, in a positive way, not in a violent way, but by speaking clear truth to me and snapping me out of my reverie or my feeling of insufficiency or helplessness in a moment. We're all subject to that. I hope everyone who's watching and listening realizes that you're talking to Unity leaders here, and we are people. We are people that have prayer needs ourselves, and we reach out to one another for the very same purpose that you would want to do that in your own life. But that's what I'm hearing, Tanisha, that you're saying, right? And Kathy, you have something else to add to that.
I do. I think I'm just in a Disney state of mind today, because as you were talking, Linda, it reminds me from that scene in The Lion King where Simba looks into the reflection, and that idea of remember who you are. And that's the thing that we reach for, because we don't always realize that we have forgotten. Right. But those who know and love us in that special way will lovingly tell us in the most memorable ways, remember, call it back into being for you who you are. And doesn't matter the circumstance, because we define circumstances because we hang labels on everything. I think everything has a hook, we hang a label on it. But those circumstances do not get to hang a hook on us and attach a label and tell us who we are. We already know that. And I think that, in coming from a very oral tradition where we tell the stories of overcoming, the stories of living through a thing, but sometimes the greatest story ever told is the story that's lived out loud, as opposed to spoken into being. So we become those examples for one another across time and space.
Yeah. So beautiful. Okay, anyone else want to weigh in on that subject?
I would just throw in one more word, Linda, and that word is compassion for ourselves and for one another, because the experience of walking through this human drama can be very challenging indeed. And sometimes, in Unity, which I dearly love, the Unity teaching, but we establish this standard of the Christ, which is like divine perfection in expression, beautiful and sacred and holy. And yet at the same time, we really need to hold each other's hands, and we need to be able to embrace ourselves and accept ourselves from a position of compassion, whatever it is that we may be walking through. And that's not always easy, but I have found it's much easier to get into the high watch consciousness if I have first loved and accepted myself wherever I am and whatever I'm doing.
Beautiful.
Well said.
Oh my gosh, you guys, you're talking truth here. Evan?
And it's just going to kind of piggyback off what everybody else has said so far. But we teach oneness, at Unity and in New Thought, and even Jesus spoke about that. And I think it was Ram Dass that what was it he said? We're all here just walking each other home. So what better way to hold the high watch for each other and to be there for one another and to acknowledge, when I look at you, I'm also looking at myself, and to be there for each other in such a beautiful, magnificent way.
Perfect. And I know Kathy, when you were speaking about that, somebody telling you, remember who you are. It reminds me of Amy's lyrics, this one line in her song that we just heard: all the hard work that you're doing is going to take you closer, higher to the stars, closer to who you are. I think Amy is reminding us that elevated consciousness, it gets us into a state of awareness of our true nature, right? Where we can integrate our human and our divine, and we can find we're not only fully human, we are also fully divine, and be able to identify with that divine nature. So, but when we talk about spirituality, though, it can be really tempting, in my experience, to begin to think in all or nothing terms. Like it goes like this: if I pray enough, if I do enough spiritual practice, I won't ever get sick again. Right? It's that thought of, well, I'm spiritual now, so I'm above all of that. And I believe we do ourselves a great disservice. I've certainly given myself that sort of strange trip in earlier years in my training. But I believe we do. In fact, I lived at an ashram, a yoga ashram, for 3 years, and I thought I was just above it all. I mean, I was walking around in my sari with my tilak, chanting Hare Krishna all day long, thinking I was so high and holy. And then when real stuff happened and I'd crash, I was disabused of that idea of being oh so holy. But so I speak from experience. But I think we do ourselves a great disservice to expect that building this consciousness through spiritual practice means that we're going to get up there and we are going to stay there. That's where we live, like from this point on, and we hold there and we never come down to earth again. So, to me, I think that's where I can get, it's easy to get into the all or nothing. I'm either human or I'm spiritual. And for me, learning to have grace for both of those aspects of my nature has made a huge difference in my ability. Does anybody else does that make sense to anybody else but me?
Actually, Linda, I'm reminded of a prosperity class we used to teach where we were encouraged to say, I am prosperous 200 times every morning and 200 times at night. And occasionally students would walk in after a week or two of this class and they would say, I don't understand what's happening. I'm speaking my affirmation. I really do think I'm prosperous. And yet, in many ways, it seems like all HELL is breaking loose now in my financial realm or whatever. And I would always say, and I've said this many times to myself, the more we affirm something, the more we are going to reveal that which is remaining in our consciousness that is still awaiting recognition, healing, and shall we say purification. Mm-hmm. So I think sometimes for the spiritual student, it can be very trying because we're going to be given through our life experience that which we need to know the pockets, the areas of growth that are awaiting for us.
Well, and if you think about it this way, it's really, we call ourselves to that. It's like that desire for us to live at that level of truth means that we are gravitating towards situations where we get to prove that for ourselves, right? Yeah. Doggone it. Wow. It's like, nobody teaches us that that's actually the way it goes, right? Right. Oh, so anyway, but so all of this that we've been talking about, I really think the culmination for us when we think about World Day of Prayer and what its intention was, it was created to be a day of world peace, a day where we really focus on how to heal the world, how to help the world. So what does all this that we've been talking about have to do with World Day of Prayer? Now, how might we help the world to heal? How might we contribute to world peace on this planet? How can we contribute this by holding the high watch? Chris, let me ask you to weigh in on that first.
Sure, Linda. We were talking a moment ago about collective and individual consciousness. So the collective consciousness of all humanity is made up of each and every one of us. There's a song we sing, I know, here at Unity on the Bay in Miami and in many Unity churches. And the title is Let There Be Peace on Earth and Let It Begin with Me. I love that. And it becomes root sometimes. And yet, that's very powerful words. Let it begin with me. Let it begin with me making the greatest contribution I can make to this collective whole. And the way that I do that is by establishing this experience of the high watch and continuing on a day-by-day basis to build my relationship with the divine so that I can more completely be the expression of that divine in my everyday life. And I believe that as each one of us in our own way comes into this realization, I've got to clean my house before I can begin to support the cleansing or the restoration of this experience on planet Earth. To me, it's the greatest single contribution we can make. There are many ways to contribute to improve the human scene, but to me, the greatest one is to ensure that I am doing my part to bring a clean consciousness and a sense of wholeness into my everyday life, my relationships, the encounters and circumstances that I face. To me, that's the way we change the world. And I would even go so far as to say we will not change it until each one of us has experienced that sort of revelation within ourselves.
Wow. Powerful and clear. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, Kathy?
Thank you. I'm going to piggyback on what Christopher shared with us. One of the things that I love about World Day of Prayer, and I still feel like a new kid sometimes when we start to engage some of these conversations, is the idea that we dedicate, which means we stop all else, and we dedicate some time to holding that space, to creating a place where that energy can stir and move and breathe, and we hold the prayer slips and everything. And I think the way that we start to change the world is that at the end of the vigil, and we start to turn the lights back on and turn off the boombox and turn the music down, and life goes back to normal, that vigil is what leaves the room as each and every one of us. That we become that quiet space, the sound of that the realization of the energy of those prayers that we have been holding for 24 hours a day. And I don't know about you all, if you've been holding on to something for 24 hours a day, you're gonna get a little bit of that on you. You're gonna feel like it, you're gonna smell like it. It's just in you. And so to take that and allow that to be a blessing wherever it is that you go, such that it's not just World Day of Prayer, it becomes the world way of prayer. And that can only happen if we choose individually and collectively to bring that thing into our lives, bring it out of the prayer chapels, bring it out of the sanctuary, bring it out of those quiet little dark places where we gather around in secret sacred prayer, bring it out and bring it out into our lives with joy and with love and with grace. When we start to allow that to be the lens that we see the world through, we will see the change. It's only through looking through the lens of the practice that we have held for those 24 hours in vigil.
Well, that sounds to me like it reminds me of the prophet Isaiah, giving a commission to, and really the assignment really to Jerusalem and ultimately to the Christ, to our divine identity, to heal the sick, to free the prisoners, to be able to shine the light of spirit in the world around us. And prayer is the starting place for that. It certainly is in our discipline of New Thought. It's the place where that all gets to take place in consciousness before it takes shape in actuality in the physical realm. Well, thank you for this really rich conversation, everyone. And I want to say to those of you who are joining us for World Day of Prayer that really this is an opportunity to push the pause button on other things in your life and to prioritize prayer for the next 24 hours, to get into the state of holding the high watch yourself for your life, for the life and the concerns of all those that you care about, and for the world. Let's together hold the high watch and elevate our hearts and minds in prayer. Thank you, each one of you, for your contributions to this body of thought and for your own prayer consciousness and practice that you lend to unity today. Be very well. Thank you. Let's devote the next couple of minutes to a period of meditation. Begin, if it's possible, by sitting toward the front edge of your seat. You'll notice when you do that your pelvis drops forward and your spine lengthens naturally so that you sit upright, opening your torso for deeper breathing. Draw your incoming breath from the back of your throat, breathing passively through the nose. When you do this, you'll hear your breath as it passes through the glottis. In yoga, this is called ujjayi breathing. It's a practice that slows and lengthens the breath for meditation. Each time, breathing without strain, drawing the breath, expanding your lungs, and each time in and out, slower and deeper. Direct your attention while you do this to the cleansing action of breathing, which is now settling your nervous system, quieting the thinking brain, and slowing body functions so that you can attend to holding the high watch. And then as you relax and sit back into your chair if you'd like, recognize now the one and only one power, divine power, in this moment. Or recognize one power by naming any of its principles, perhaps love, life, order, wisdom, strength, or peace. Whatever you need to know that God is, recognize it now. We know there is only one power and one presence, God, and that this means that humanity is included in one power and presence. We are divine. It is our true nature to be all that we know God is. In this moment, refer back to the principles that you identified just a moment ago. Consider that you are 100% human and 100% divine, and that claiming these principles is our claim on divinity. What God is, I am. Gently integrate your human and divine identity by claiming, I am that principle. I am love, life, order, wisdom, strength, or peace, or any principle that you need. In the silence of the next couple of minutes, agree with God. Agree with your Godness. Accept your part in the potential of these divine qualities. Let's be silent for a moment. Knowing that you are, in truth, the principle you identified, now devote a few moments to considering ways that you might hold the high watch for your intentions, for those of your loved ones, and for the world over the next 24 hours. Demonstrating the principle that you have claimed, how will you hold the high watch? How will we hold the high watch for health and wholeness? Maybe by affirming the vitality of divine life, the stabilizing power of strength, and the adjusting power of order. As we hold the high watch for healing in relationships, might we affirm the cleansing power of release or the harmony of divine love? Holding the high watch for the fulfillment of essential human needs wherever and however they have been compromised, might we affirm humanity's capacity for extraordinary generosity and compassionate service? And holding the high watch for peace between people and among countries and among diverse populations, affirming our divine identity, which is peace, maybe that's one way, and being willing to hold ourselves accountable for our thoughts and actions in the world. Friends, we are one in the state of oneness, holding the high watch in a spacious consciousness, expectant beyond what we have known before. We are one in the state of oneness, holding the high watch in a spacious consciousness. We prepare to enter a 24-hour period of prayer for World Day of Prayer 2022, of one mind in unity. And so it is.
Peace and blessings and joy are manifesting in my life as I will it to be. There are no limitations to my imagination, and my life is mine to conceive. Affirmations remind me of my greatness and the truth of my divinity. I speak with conviction and stand in my dominion, cause my thoughts create reality. One power and one presence are the very essence of my divine identity. With practice, application, and regular meditation, I learn what I am called to be. Peace and blessings and joy are manifesting in your life as you will it to be. There are no limitations to your imagination. Your life is yours to conceive. Affirmations remind you of your greatness and the truth of your divinity. Speak with conviction and stand in your dominion, cause your thoughts create reality. One power and one presence are the very essence of your divine identity. With practice, application, and regular meditation, learn what you are called to be. You'll learn what you are called to be. Your divine identity. I learn what I am called to be. I learn what I am called to be. What are you called to be? Who are you called to be?
For more than a century, silent unity has been known as the light that shines for you. This has been the case in a material sense as well as spiritually. At Unity Village in Missouri, the Silent Unity Prayer Vigil is capped with a cupola that is lit perpetually. It can be seen through the night hours, representing continuous prayer that takes place in silent unity 24/7, 365. Someone is always praying in response to your prayer requests, and someone is always in silent meditation, upholding your prayer intentions. During World Day of Prayer, we invite you to unite with the prayer ministry by lighting a candle and repeating this year's affirmation when you begin your prayer time. If you have been to Unity Village, imagine yourself sitting in the Prayer Vigil Chapel, holding the high watch for many thousands of friends from around the world who have requested prayer support. Even if you've never visited Unity Village, know that you are a point of consciousness within a global movement, shining a light of spiritual reassurance for all people everywhere. We now begin the World Day of Prayer Vigil that will conclude 24 hours from now. I light my candle as I affirm. I pray with an elevated mind and an open heart.
I pray with an elevated mind and an open heart.
I pray with an elevated mind and an open heart.
I pray with an elevated mind and an open heart.
I pray with an elevated mind and an open heart.
I pray with an elevated mind and an open heart.
I pray with an elevated mind and an open heart.
I pray with an elevated mind and open heart.
We have an opportunity to show appreciation in a tangible way for how we are blessed and supported. We know that giving is an act of love and are so grateful for our ability to direct our dollars where we recognize and experience spiritual value. The mission of Unity World Headquarters is to help and serve more people. Our mission is accomplished by the work of our ministries, funded by the generosity of people like you who care about Unity's uplifting ministries. The ministries of Unity World Headquarters include print and digital resources, such as the Daily Word, the Unity Magazine. The Unity Prayer Ministry, providing 24/7, 365 prayer support via Silent Unity, continuous prayer vigil, and weekday prayer services on Facebook. And the Outreach Ministry, distributing blessing booklets and materials of spiritual support around the world. Well, all of our ministries are funded by the generosity of grateful friends. You can contribute by following the link on your screen. So let's unite together in speaking the affirmation for generosity that you'll see on the screen here. Together, in a consciousness of divine love, we receive as we give abundantly, magnifying these gifts and pouring them out in service. We celebrate prosperity, and so it is. Amen.